So yeah, as you know, we're going to do like a little impromptu episode of the Needle Drop Podcast here. My semi-dead interview podcast, which we're just resurrecting for the Sound on Sound Festival. So I appreciate Sound on Sound bringing me down here to interview a few great artists today. The first of which are a hip-hop group that I hope you're familiar with. I've reviewed their albums on multiple occasions. The great Clipping, with a period at the end, Clipping.
Yeah, it was hella hard to hear. Yeah, I couldn't hear anything.
I can just touch these guys. Usually I'm just talking about them into a camera with a YouTube video, and the first time that we got that
The internet.
outside of the internet. When was the first time that we we met? I met you guys shortly after you came out with your first mixtape.
Was that in Palm Springs?
No.
No.
We
Met before? In
South by.
At South
You,
by.
we played
You
your
brought us to
showcase.
South by. We
Yes,
were not going to
okay.
play there.
I first met these guys at South by Southwest after I had interviewed them. So I didn't know anything about these guys personally. I'd never met them. They just had a mixtape, Mid-City, that I thought was really good. And then I think out of the blue, you guys just showed up to this set that this showcase that I had booked with a friend of mine, and they were just like, "Hey, can we play?" And I was like, "Sure."
We were booked.
I thought we
Were
were
you booked?
scheduled.
We were
Or was
booked.
it like?
I think your friend must have booked us.
You know what it is?
It was
I
with,
think,
was it with
no.
Terrorize?
You know what it is? It was with Terrorize.
So yeah, Sean booked
The,
us, and you might not have known.
Yes, Sean booked you. What happened was Young Fathers had shown up last minute and they played.
Yeah.
And they were
Oh,
just
yeah,
like,
yeah,
we'll
yeah.
play.
Yes.
But you guys still took me off guard because they came through with this set that was so ear-piercing that everybody who was in the warehouse that we were holding it in ran out of the warehouse.
Definitely like cleared the room.
They
It was
ran the
like
fuck
just
out of the
Anthony
warehouse.
standing in the middle of an empty warehouse.
So, they just like pretty much came on like, "It's Clipping, bitch." And then just all this huge rush of distortion and feedback came pouring through the PA. And David, it was like dark as fuck in the warehouse, but he had his sunglasses on. And I don't even know if like they were just so into what they were doing. I didn't even know if they noticed that people were running out of the venue with their ears bleeding.
We'd had experience with that before.
So, okay, so you really came to fuck shit up. I thought it was like maybe they just
No,
just
I mean,
overdid
no,
it.
we actually like the music that we make, but like, I don't know, it seemed, it was not, I don't know, it wasn't Mike Eagle also playing? Like, I think if you came for like quiet raps and then, you're saying if you're there expecting
I know Milo
one thing
played
and you
earlier.
get,
Milo
oh,
played
Milo.
earlier.
Milo
That's right.
played.
particularly quiet raps. And we've toured with Milo. Like, we fucks with Milo super tough. But if you came for Milo and instead you got Clipping, you leave.
It was a really weird bill. Like, it was all over the place.
Yeah.
Like, some loud rock bands played earlier, and like Anamanaguchi was supposed to play after, but then we had like a backline issue. It was a fun time. And then I caught you guys later in Palm Springs,
Yeah.
which was the first time
Right.
I had been there. And that was a nice show. That was a nice little bar that you guys had brought me to. And I met all of your girlfriends too. So I met all the Mrs. Clippings, and they were all great, and they were very supportive of all that you guys are doing, as am I. So if you guys didn't already know, they had just dropped a new album called Splendor Misery on Sub Pop Records, and their second commercial full-length album, and I believe correct.
Yeah.
And it's a concept album of sorts. Tell me a little bit about the story and the idea of the narrative of this album, as much as you want to say without spoiling the entire thing. Unless you want to spoil the entire thing, go for it.
Well, I don't think we actually can spoil the entire thing because it's oblique enough that the three of us don't agree on what the plot is.
Really?
True.
So no matter who you talk to, it might be slightly different.
Yeah, I mean, we sort of approached it with the idea that like all versions of the story were true simultaneously, and as long as some new decisions satisfied what each of the three of us sort of thought the plot of the record was and the ideas in the record were, like it was okay,
Right.
And that listening to it is like the process of being like an archivist or something and finding primary sources and having to put a story together without the whole thing there, with just like weird little artifacts.
So yeah, I think as much of the story as we agree on is that we're following the last surviving member of an uprising on an intergalactic slave ship, and the ship's computer who falls in love with him as they pilot the ship into nothing.
And one thing that sort of took me off guard, or you could tell me if this came up independently of all this, or if it was something that the three of you had sort of stirred up together. But going back to the days of like slave spirituals, I wonder if it was kind of inspired by the work that you had recently done on Hamilton. If that was sort of connected to that in any kind of way.
Yeah, we recorded all of this album before Hamilton was even a thought. I mean, we did most of this recording a long time ago, and really post-Hamilton was just like tweaking and finishing things up. But actually, I think me and Jonathan had sort of independently of each other become really interested in work songs and spirituals. Like we were both reading books. I was like, had sort of picked up a bunch of like compilations of old prison work songs and chain gang songs and
Mountain songs and things, which there's a lot of overlap.
yeah. And as we started sort of thinking about this album, we knew we wanted to do something about. We knew we wanted to do this sort of Afrofuturist space thing. And as we started thinking about that, part of the thing that was exciting was trying to create through line. So what are the things that we recognize as we start to create a world that is so far in the future from where we live? What things have been held on to, and so that was really it. It was about kind of having some sort of like cultural muscle memory of work songs or of spirituals, also mixed in with what we might recognize right now as like contemporary rap music or whatever. These far enough in the future, all of these things sort of bleed together, and it's all part of the same like slave narrative.
And the way that you guys sort of incorporate it into the record is pretty stark, because some of these work songs, or some of what could be considered work songs stylistically, are so naked and bare. It's like you don't even really kind of touch them up. We're talking about just like kind of really just like a cappella tracks, vocal tracks. What was the decision, or where did the decision come from to sort of just be like, let's just leave these on here as raw as they can be, and just kind of really kind of take people from one century to several centuries back, just to immediately within the split second of a record.
Yeah, well, we tried to build into them. I mean, the first one, the singers appear with like inside of a track, and then the track peels away to reveal the a cappella stuff. So we were trying to ease into that, and then by the second side, who knows if this worked, we thought we had earned just letting these singers just be alone for that track.
And a lot of it is, I mean, just on an aesthetic level, when you have like singers or instrumentalists that good, I'm always like, well, like, all right, like if you add something, are you fighting it or are you making it better? And you just take away as much as you can, and then letting it sort of sit on its own is really. But that was always the intention, to let those pieces sort of sit on their own as much as possible. I mean, and also like the character on the album is like there's so much of stuff on the album that like feels like radio transmissions, or like has to do with sort of receiving signals in one way or another. And we were trying to kind of blur the line between like, well, are these being transmitted? Is he picking this up with some sort of technological equipment, or is this like some sort of dream state? Is this some sort of other kind of like dream mental sort of transmission reception sort of idea?
To sort of go off of what you were saying about not having sounds and ideas competing musically on the record, I mean, even the instrumentals themselves are pretty stark a lot of the time. To the point where it seems like you guys are really trying to immerse the listener into not so much a piece of music, but really the sound of the spaceship that the character who the album is following is living on. Where did a lot of these sounds come from? Because obviously I know that you guys sort of take samples from real things, whether it be breaking glass or ball bearings, or I don't even know half of the things you guys sample. It's insane. But where did you gather all these sounds for this spaceship that didn't even exist? What did you use, or sort of what kind of sounds did you grab to sort of create this atmosphere that felt so real on the record? Unless you really did go on a spaceship somewhere.
Yeah,
and I
it's
didn't know
mostly
about it.
synthesizer for the most part, but there are recorded sounds. But the thing about the recorded sounds is it's much more like, I think we were using more like film Foley techniques instead of like field recording stuff, because it was so, the sounds themselves are so mundane but they have to represent something else. So like like slamming a oven door shut might, cut it out of context, and it might not sound like an oven. It might sound like something that could be on a spaceship. So it was these like really sort of everyday objects that we were trying to use that could represent physical things on a spaceship, but that weren't. They're not like exciting in themselves. They're not like a Matt Most record where it's like we shoveled manure onto flowers or something.
Their whole new record, they sampled a washing machine.
Yeah, where it's like this is about this washing machine, where we were trying to disguise. Actually, I think there's an oven and a washing machine.
There's totally
in
a washing machine.
True
on
Believer.
Yeah, and you end up making a lot of decisions too that like we normally wouldn't make. Like usually on an album, like if we have this field recording that has this really particularly great like metal gate closing or something, and we're like, oh, this is really rhythmically interesting. Let's cut it into a loop. We don't care that you can also hear birds in the background. But on this record, we had to say, well, that puts it in a context that's totally inappropriate for this really sort of stark out of space record. So we actually can't use the sound here, even though the metal itself is the right sound. So we were actually like really trying to remove context from the field recording so they could have a different context as much as possible.
The narrative of the record is pretty dense. You guys fit in a lot in the 40 or so minute runtime that you guys have on the album. Are there moments of this story that haven't yet been explored that you guys will go back to later, or are there parts of the story that have sort of gone on the cutting room floor that you'd like to talk about?
There's not a lot of rapping that we didn't use, but there's like 3 additional hours of instrumentals.
Say something.
One of the constraints early on was that we really wanted it to be one piece of vinyl. So this was really an exercise in like really trimming it down so it could be two.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we could revisit. I mean, it's the world is interesting and fun. It doesn't seem particularly like us to go back and do another space record, but like, never say never. But yeah, I think there's. I'm still learning stuff when I listen to it. So I think until that stops, I probably don't need to write more outer space raps.
Speaking of the opposite of keeping things short and at 40 minutes or so, not too long earlier, before you guys had come out with that album, you dropped that Dreams remix on Bandcamp, which is about 24 hours long. What inspired you to do a 24-hour-long remix of? Honestly, I'm not even quite sure. I'm sure the song Dreams is remixed in that, from
that is
clipping.
literally just that track, Dream, using an algorithm called Paul Stretch, just stretched to 24 hours.
Just stretched to 24 hours. Okay.
So remember that Justin Bieber at 4,000 times slower thing? That's exactly what we did.
Got it.
No.
But at 24 hours.
Got it. Okay. All right, well, then let's fast forward a little bit.
People were really disappointed when they were like, oh my God, did you sit there and play all this for 24 hours? We were like, we haven't even heard all 24 hours of it.
I kept getting texts from friends. It's like, hour 13 is pretty good. And it's like, I bet it is. Have not heard it.
Because it was sort of a joke about like it being like making sort of intellectual connections between ambient music and the sort of process that the sort of Paul Stretch internet like fad, and then also our interest in like DJ Screw and that like what slowing down does to music. So,
and we originally talked about it as just like, oh, nobody, because we put out the remixing album at the same time with a bunch of remixes from the first Sub Pop album, and nobody had remixed the song Dream, which we were all kind of disappointed about because we really liked that. We don't feel really people talk about it, and it was like, oh, let's just do our own remix of it, like, and give it a fake name and stick it on the end of this album, like really quick, and let's just like Paul Stretch it to like, 40 minutes because it's a Bandcamp album and there's no like maximum length. It's not like it's coming out on CD, so it's like great, you can download this like 12-track album and it's like 9 hours long because the last track is 8.5 hours long, and I thought that was really funny. And then the time just kept growing and then it became its own thing. But
tell me a little bit about your opinion of sort of keeping mystery in music, because you guys are really forthright. You've always been really forthright out of all the times I've talked to you about your process, the things that you do in your music, how you make your music. But easily you could just sit there and be like, oh yeah, well, we spent so much time on the Dream remix, and that's why when you listen to hour 14, it's just so amazing, but instead you're just like, well, actually it's this. And, but the thing is, like, if you, the more in the dark you keep people sometimes, the more, like, I guess they kind of come up with their own narrative as to how it was created. Although sometimes, I guess the simplest answer is the truth.
I think that's also, it's partly why we put so many like weird coded messages and like hidden things in the music itself and leave stuff in the music so oblique, because our personalities are just such that we're just going to tell you everything if you ask. Like we talk a lot, and we're not mysterious guys. But we try to make the music mysterious, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. This is this kind of stuff is the stuff I'm always really excited to hear artists talk about. Like, I like seeing how it came to be, like how we made the thing. So that's how we end up speaking. But like, the mystery. Like one of the things I love about music is like it doesn't matter. It doesn't, right? Like, I don't know, knowing how a thing was made doesn't affect how it makes me feel when I listen to it. Like that, it has zero consequence, really. It's just, oh, that's awesome. Maybe now I have a way to kind of try and repeat this feeling, which you actually don't, because like, it's all person specific and everything. So, but yeah, I don't know. Giving away, like, learning the secret to how a thing was made has never changed how I reacted to the music.
And if all you are is like, if all we are is just like a set of like secrets and tricks that we don't let anybody know, like if anybody who knows all of these techniques and these tricks could do exactly what we're doing, then fine, like fuck it, then I guess we're not doing anything interesting, like it's got to be more than that. And the more that more people know all the tricks that can be done, the more interesting music will get made quicker and quicker and quicker. So I don't really like understand like musicians who won't share their process, or like people who claim they only listen to their own music, or like it sort of feeds into this weird cult of genius that I don't understand, that I think is really damaging too. It's like we're all just sort of people working, and we all have ideas. And in my experience, like not a lot of people actually sort of work in these like grand, mysterious ways. And so I think it's important to like sort of shatter that idea.
After the Dream remix and everything, you guys had not too much earlier, before Splendor and Misery, you dropped that really sexually charged, filthy, and raw Regal EP, where I think that you guys really did an amazing job of kind of tributing the harsh noise artists that I know have always kind of influenced the production on your record. Especially that really clear White House sample that you had thrown into the record. What was it sort of time for you guys to sort of swing the pendulum back away? Not that the album isn't a hip hop album, it is, but swing the album or swing that pendulum more in the direction of like tributing these noise artists that have kind of inspired you so much.
I wish I wish we could claim a little more like calculation in that, but those are literally like the Regal EP is just the songs we had started for the previous album and hadn't quite finished by the time we had to turn it in. So they happen to work together in a way that we really enjoy, but it wasn't as premeditated as I guess we'd like it to be.
It kind of was. It was just premeditated like 2 years earlier, because we had them sort of mostly all half done and kind of all set up and ready to go, and then that previous Sub Pop album came out, and we're like, we have this other EP that we should drop like the same day of brand new stuff that no one's expecting, and they hated that idea and didn't want to do that. And then 2 years went by.
That's a marketing clusterfuck.
Yeah.
They were not
There's a
pleased.
PR person like, no.
Yeah. But I kind of love it when bands do that.
We did, the one like super premeditated thing was that we were actually going to release it the week before, and like now I have this team of people, and they were like, you realize the Tonys are that week, right? Could you wait until after the Tonys to put out all these bonded
Now you got to
drafts?
care about the Tonys.
I know.
There was a time earlier when you didn't have to care about a Tony.
Yeah. And so we dropped it the day after the Tonys.
The day after the Tonys, there's like
Which I
a
thought was
picture
really
of a
fun.
guy encased in rubber, now associated with
And now,
the
like,
Tony Award
a
winner.
bunch of like Broadway fan teenagers and their parents come to our show, and I get to say, wriggle like a fish, girl.
And that's another thing, I mean, I did an interview with you not too long ago where I was asking you about Hamilton and just your whole experience in that. But sort of post all of that, what kind of strange crossover has sort of that created where you're in this huge Broadway hit show, but then you sort of come back to make this really sort of underground experimental hip-hop music that you're sort of potentially exposing, like you said, these Broadway fans to that wouldn't have found out about it otherwise?
Yeah, I think like what's great is that people consume music the same. Like the people who come to the shows are like the kids who went down like a rabbit hole after Hamilton and like found clipping and were like, oh, I really like this. Like I like this enough. So like they tend to be really open and excited. It's just there is a very different way that people are fans when they are like musical theater fans than they are when you're a rap music fan. You know what I'm saying? So like when we show up to a club 5 hours early for sound check and they're like teenagers lined up outside like waiting, it's adorable. And but you know, once we all get in the same room, like you realize like actually like you're here because you genuinely like the thing. You're not this would be intolerable if you were actually just here to see me in the wild.
Yeah, I mean, Hamilton is so popular that it has like if it has this many fans, that means this many people were exposed to clipping, but only this many of those new people actually like us and come to the show. So it's still like a wider reach, but we still self-selected for like the same
in a
weirdos.
way, though, it's kind of the Splendor Misery is sort of the perfect record to drop after that kind of exposure because it is a narrative album.
Yeah.
It is a very theatrical record.
Again, in hindsight, it all feels so calculated, but it's really very just like
Roll with the
It
punches,
was
man.
never our intention. Yeah.
Another thing that you guys had recently participated in was that 30, now it's 40 songs for 30 days, talking about how Donald Trump sucks dicks and everything. Tell me a little bit about your participation in that with the song Fat Fingers, which I know that you guys used video of that dude sort of like pickaxing.
We didn't actually.
didn't. We
that
never-
video had nothing to do with us.
We never saw that.
They
till
made
later.
that without
attached
us.
it to
That
the-
we saw it the first time when they posted.
It's
it.
cool.
I mean,
I was
that's-
wondering if you had actually sampled the sounds of it or
I
something.
know that's what it implies,
Which, like,
and
at
we
this
absolutely
point-
did not do that.
At
so.
this point, knowing what I know about you guys, I was like, oh, that makes sense, But like, okay, so the video obviously doesn't have anything to do with
It's,
that.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much we should call. Well, we were asked to contribute to that project, knowing very little about it. I think we say this in the little blurb that Bill wrote about it. But like, we basically were like, do you want to give us your song "Knees on the Ground"? That's now 2 years old, 2.5
Yeah.
years old, for this anti-Trump compilation. And we said, sure. Well, I mean, we're not big fans of Donald Trump. Sure, that's fine.
Not the biggest fans, just like
I guess that's a yeah. And then when that project got announced, it's like 30 bands, original songs, all anti-Donald Trump songs. We thought, well, we can't be the one fucking band that's like, and here's ours, and it's a 2.5-year-old song that you've all heard before. But I feel like if we had been asked to write a brand new anti-Trump song, we would have said, well, I don't fucking have time to do this. Like,
yeah.
So we did that in like 12 hours.
and
And-
it feels like such a sort of even as much as we dislike Donald Trump and as terrifying as the whole thing is, like it feels like such a sort of childish thing to do. It was a fun sort of exercise in writing this kind of.
Well, but this was what
Yeah.
was interesting to me. It wasn't even about. This was an opportunity. Why I pitched the song the way it ended up is we do the album, the first Sub Pop album. Every song was sort of conceived as, well, this is a type of rap song we like. Here's a Memphis strip club song. Well, let's do that. Here's a DJ Screw song. Let's do that. Like these are all like loving tributes to certain types of hip hop that we enjoy. Like here's our summer. Summertime in the LBC or something, like our like SoCal summer track. And so one thing we couldn't ever do is do a diss song because there's no first person and diss songs are so personal. And also
You guys
just like
didn't have beef with anybody.
we don't have beef with anybody. We're not going to pick on anybody. We're not going to start it artificially. But like there is a rich history of diss songs, and I don't know about these guys, but I follow rap beef like it's fucking TMZ. Like I obsess over that shit, and I have my whole life. I love that stuff. It's so silly to me. So it was like, oh, this is an opportunity to like enter into all of the dumb shit we really wish we could be a part of. But since it's like about someone who is not a rapper, not going to respond. Also, it's not like no one's surprised we don't like Donald Trump. It's like such an easy.
I don't think anybody was
fucking
surprised
target.
at anybody on
It's
that
like-
compilation.
Yeah, it's like not a radical thing to do. It's not like I don't know. It doesn't feel like the danger of like Bush Killa when Paris put that out when I was like 11 and was like, oh shit, I can't tell my mom I bought this tape.
Yeah.
But like, Yeah, we just like I think more than a desire to insult Donald Trump, it was a strong desire to create like a really childish, goofy diss song.
And to have like a clipping version of that, because when else are you going to have an opportunity for that? So,
So the sound that sounds like maybe that the breaking of the sidewalk is actually we just banged on lunch tables because we were like, this is so like playground and childish. So it was like all the sounds are slamming dumpsters shut and hitting like metal lunch tables on a school campus.
Yeah, it's actually all sounds that we recorded for ideas that didn't quite make it on the Sub Pop record for doing like schoolyard.
Yeah, we were trying to do like a DJ Quick, like Sugar Freestyle, just beating on tables thing that we never really got around to.
Yeah.
And to go back to Knees on the Ground, which obviously almost made it onto the compilation, like you said, even though you're talking about the act of this track being sort of a childish thing, you guys are no strangers to making politically charged music or socially aware music. Is that something that you feel like you personally are obligated to do because, you're sort of aware of these things in the world that you sort of object to, greatly, so you have to make a song about it, you have to say something about it? Or is it something that an artist should be obligated to do or, need to do because they're sort of like communicating to their fans things that they think are important in the world?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that any of us would prescribe something for another artist, but like, Knees on the Ground was because we had to. We weren't trying to make that song, and we didn't want to make that song, and it would be awesome if that song wasn't still super fucking relevant. But, that was an instance where we actually showed up in the studio to make like a club track. We were trying to make party music, and it was such a fucking bummer because police kept murdering black people that we couldn't make party music, so we made a song about that instead.
And I do think, I think we struggled with whether we wanted to be, so overt with that type of political message. But I don't know. I do think, I don't think any art is not political, and I do think that, there are certain elements of just, what we do musically that I think is incredibly political. Like, the choice to not use first person is an incredibly political choice for us. The sort of attempt to stretch what you think of as musically normal, I think is just is also a political decision. There's a lot written about rhythms and tuning systems as exports of colonialism and as representations of patriarchy. We don't need to get into a lecture on that, but it's I do think sort of trying to break these molds or challenging anything that we take for granted as biologically normal or just how things work is important politically.
Right. So we really intentionally will interchange gender pronouns in almost every song that we do. You know what I'm saying? If you've heard a clipping sex song, the gender of the protagonist in that song is pretty fluid, or at least who they're fucking is pretty fluid. And that's intentional. That's not an accident. That is a way of wearing our politics within the guise of this thing that is having no I, which is having no central first person, right?
Yeah, I've specifically on that Gangsta Boo track that you guys you had her on, which was an amazing feature. I remember some people sort of commenting and contacting me, telling me hey, that was such an amazing act of feminism for them to bring her on this song and for her to talk so raunchily about sex. And I'm just while it is great and I do like that song, it's she's been doing that for a long time.
I was going to say that's why we asked her.
That's just her.
We begged and pleaded for her to get on that song.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm always immediately distrustful of super overtly political art because I feel you kind of run into this situation where when you're right, you don't have to make something that's necessarily good to still be right, and I feel the aesthetics sort of have to guide you still, because at the end, we're still making songs and it's still music, right? We're not writing essays necessarily, but I've also realized that to me the most exciting art and the most exciting political art is art that just demonstrates a politics rather than says it, right? Rather than point out what's wrong with the world, just make a song that is the kind of song you wish was commonplace if things weren't wrong in the way that you see them to be wrong, right? make a song with gender fluidity, not a song about how you wish there were songs with gender fluidity in them.
Sure.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
kind of just like the matter of
Yeah,
just
make
being the change you want to see, or just making the kind of music you want to see in the world, or making the
Yeah.
kind of statement.
Make
you
a
wanna
song
do.
with your friend who is a queer rapper who raps about sex instead of making a song about how you're totally not gay, but I'm not grossed out if gay people get married, I
Shots
swear.
fired.
Exactly.
That's actually probably the most genius way to go about it, because the opposite way just seems preachy, even if you do agree with the statements that are sort of being made.
It seems preachy, and then you get audience members that are going to find themselves agreeing with you and liking a song without ever sort of noticing the politics of it, and it just starts to become normal. You're
Yeah.
like, oh, this is what, this is what songs are like, or this is what movies are like, or this is,
It's like there's one of my favorite stand-up comedians is Stuart Lee, and he always says like he doesn't want an audience member who's like, oh, Stuart Lee was great. Yeah, but was he funny? No, but I agreed with him so hard.
Yeah.
I clapped and nodded the whole time.
Okay, so you're talking about sort of getting away from, or being distracted from making party music or songs that feel like party music to you guys because of politics, and obviously you guys didn't dabble in that too much on the new record because of the concept. But I'll just say this: you guys have a pretty strange interpretation of what makes for party music. How exactly do you go about making music that feels, and it does, I don't disagree that it isn't party music. How do you get music that sort of has that vibe to it, has that feel to it, but then ends up so on the fringe, on the left side of the dial, and is so harsh and kind of abrasive?
I mean, I think the music that you hear us make is the music we are capable of making together. But like, we know we're not. If a song sounds like an interpretation of like a radio rap song or like a club rap song, we're not making fun of it. We love that music. We only interpret things that we really genuinely like. So like, we know the form that we're trying to play within, and then here are these techniques this is the way that we make music. And so when we smash those together, this is sort of what comes out. But I think we have never put a song out where there was any accident on it ever. We sit and argue about every song for hours. Like, there's no jamming. There's no like, oh, look at this thing we stumbled on. Like, that's not how we work. Like, we're like, sit and like focus our way through a piece of music, So like, the sound that you get is this very intentional. All of the reference points are things that we sat down and we're like, yep, this is what we're trying to say here. That sounds right. This is how these words fit into this space. Like,
And I think our years and years of listening to harsher music and to experimental music has sort of trained our ears and to find those sounds like very aesthetically pleasing. I mean, I think that's the reason that we were all probably gravitated towards noise in the beginning. I mean, I can remember, the experience of being in like a small room with an incredibly overpowered PA, just hearing just wall noise is, I think, incredibly euphoric. And to combine that somehow with dance music is a fun challenge, and also have like sort of both read in the same way.
Yeah, I think there's also what you mentioned, that there's like a sort of a misunderstanding. I think like I see it in a lot of really young people who like we all did this. The first year you discover like harsh noise music or any sort of really aggressive music, you think its value is in how unbearable it is. And as long as you stick with it and stick around, you develop an aesthetic in it, you develop taste, and the value of the sounds is in their pleasant qualities, not like they're actually pleasurable, not that you're just disruptive and, yeah, the guy who beat me up in high school likes this, so I don't like that, I like this other thing, fuck him,
I don't even know where that last part came from. Is that just like a Freudian slip there? Or?
No, that's I've spent a long time on internet communities who like noise music, and you get people who are like, it was always strange to me because it's like, I like noise and I like fucking pop music and I like rap music. And it was like my fandom of noise wasn't a reaction formation against getting picked on by normal people. I also like this.
I knew somebody who hated the band Tool because their bully liked Tool. I also know people who hate Tool because they don't like their music, but still.
I was gonna say, that's a really nerdy bully.
It's
like, yeah, but this song's in 7.
And that's the rhythm I beat you at. Yes. I lost my fucking train of thought now. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so going off of how, sort of forms of rap music that you guys really enjoy inspire you, what you're telling me is that there's really only a matter of time before there's some kind of like revision of like Drake One Dance, whitewashed, westernized dance hall music sort of turning up in a clipping record somewhere.
I mean, we have to like it to.
And I'm saying you guys love that song. I mean, it's one of the biggest hits of the year.
I'm coming
Drake,
around.
One Dance, come on.
I come around on it.
I don't hate it.
You know what I'm saying? I have nothing against Drake. I have. It's hyperbole, but I don't. I actually like. I don't. I understand why people like that song, whether or not it's for me. You know what I'm saying? Like that dude makes hits, and I don't begrudge him for making hits. Yeah.
There are no ghostwriters, right? Just to get it out in the open, no ghostwriters, no clipping ghostwriters.
Over us? I don't. Yeah. Does it matter?
I know no one cares anymore.
That's the
I
thing,
turns
right?
out,
Like, what's
like,
the?
We're of a
Does it-
generation
does
where
it
we
matter?
were like,
Does it matter?
ghostwriters? Does anyone care? Nah,
Couple
people.
some nods, some.
Sort of care. If Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote all my verses, would you care?
Nobody really cares. So it really
That
doesn't
would-
matter. So, if not Drake, I'm not asking you guys to call out Drake right here, but and not that this would be a call out or anything, but if
I'm sure he
aside
cares.
from Donald Trump, hey, he listens to this fucking podcast. He watches my fucking reviews.
Yeah.
When I talked about views, he was there like,
He was weeping.
yeah,
Sled.
oh yeah.
I mean, the dude can rap also. Like, let's not.
It's
like,
true. It's true.
I like rappers who rap. Drake can rap when he chooses to.
If there's anybody you guys could beef with other than Donald Trump in the hip hop world, who would it be? Who would you beef with?
Like,
You know,
okay,
hypothetically.
like as like a RPR people arranged it to sell more things, like
Absolutely.
like a-
or
it was
like,
sort of like
we're
wrestling,
secretly friends, but
Yeah,
we're gonna
exactly.
do this for sales.
Sure.
Or do we actually hate that motherfucker?
Give me column A and column B. Come on, we have time. We're not in a rush.
We're not eating into dead milkman
If
time.
there's a friend that you guys could beef with and sort of arrange that whole thing,
Oh yeah. Wait, who would actually participate in that with us? Like, what friend of ours would like?
I don't know, but also if it's a good enough idea and we say it, then like we just
it
fucked
just
it up.
might be happening.
It's
yeah.
true. Okay, well then just tell me the one if you could just beef with anybody, actually, angrily.
I mean, honestly, if we could beef, well, no. I'm just trying to think like who would actually sell us more records. Like if Drake actually did feel offended by something we said and responded in a track, we'd get a lot more views and downloads and listens. Like, not that I'm trying to call out Drake or have any interest in attacking him, but like, there is a marketing, like beef is for marketing. So if we're just going to be crass about it,
Yeah, I don't know. I like actual. Can't think of an actual artist who I would care to beef with.
Okay, I won't press the issue any
who's
further.
who's the softest who like you wouldn't even get your feelings hurt because like by their response?
Like what? Yeah, like and what would be the point then?
Well, I guess part of the thing is that in hip hop, it seems like there's this really prominent element of, and not to say that this takes away from the genre at all, but I think it sort of says a lot that in a way, Ric Flair is a huge influence on hip hop with the way that he talks shit, with the way that he's like such a huge animated personality.
And he's
But in
showing
a-
up all the time now by kids who are like too young to know, right? I mean, like that's fascinating to me. I love that shit.
And he did that
kind of
insane video
archaeology
recently with
is-
Waka Flocka Flame because I guess they both kind of are running for president now. But having said that, in a way, you guys completely sidestep that whole, avoiding sort of talking in the first person and that sort of thing in your music. It seems like that whole element of, bravado and sort of coming out there and being like this braggadocious, gorilla-chested shit talker who's going to beat the shit out of you. It's like you guys kind of subvert that entirely. And is it hard to continue to avoid that as you move forward, or is it just like not a part of the equation?
Yeah, I mean, look at us. Not really. Like, that's I mean, there is something about just as a rapper. Like, there's something about if you're a rapper and you're still rapping and you're in your 30s, like you think you're a really good rapper. I think I'm a great fucking rapper. Like I do, or I wouldn't do it. Like, but it is not sort of within the realm of my personality to spend a lot of time like comparing myself to other rappers or talking about how I'm better than, because I also consume so much rap music and I steal so much from other rappers, and I'm like learning cadences and studying what they do. Like I'm a nerd about this shit. So again, like the way we make music is the way that we make music.
And the idea of not having I first pitched the idea that we never use first person because I was like, we wanted to make music that was tougher than we are personally, and I didn't want to feel like we're fucking
Like playing
faking it.
characters, or something,
Going back to what you had just said about being at a certain age and continuing to rap because you feel like, you have the wherewithal to do it, you have the talent to continue to do it. Is there an element of ageism in hip hop? Is there a certain age at which, no matter how talented are, you should just stop?
I hope not. I'm fucked.
I don't think we could have reached it yet, right?
Yeah,
Well-
right. I mean, like that's the thing. Like we are now just entering this world where like rap is old enough to have like rappers in their 40s who are still out there making music, it's still palatable. I don't know.
Like I remember when American Gangster
Yeah.
came out by Jay-Z, and I was like, this is like the first adult contemporary rap album, and
We
I
used to
loved it.
talk
I was
about
like,
it.
this is for grown-ass people. There is no pandering to like 18-year-olds on this record. He's like, I'm an adult. I'm going to talk about grown-up shit. That's it. This is who it's for.
There's no real single. These beats like don't really, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't flashy. It was like, oh, so that yeah. We used to talk about that all the time. Is like, oh, you can sort of mark this paradigm shift where like there is now a place for grown-up rap music that didn't really exist before.
And in your opinion, as people who are obviously participating in the genre, do you think rap is kind of on the whole aging gracefully? Since we're kind of on the frontier of it, sort of being in the position where now in hip hop you have your legacy acts, you have your comeback artists, you have your artists who have been at it for a few decades now, and they're on their 12th, their 15th record.
I think certain artists age gracefully. I wouldn't like paint the whole genre with too wide a brush. I think, I think Juicy J has aged amazingly. For example, I love
It's all that clean living.
I do love the Juicy J 2 Chainz like weird like goofy uncle kind of like
That stuff is good.
perspective that it's so good. It's so good. I mean, and I like that they're like people are coming out. Like I remember it was like not a well-known fact when Plies first like dropped his first big breakout single. That guy was like 36 when he got famous. It was like. I'm glad that that's available to people now.
Right. It wasn't like now you wouldn't have to hide it, right? But at the time, like nobody talked about that. But yeah, I mean, it's. I think it is. I mean, it ages the way that people age, right? It's like, it's got a bunch of old dudes who are like, that's not what hip hop is. Like back in my day, and then you've got other people who are like. The cool uncle who are like trying to figure out what the kids are doing and like interested in it, but still like I can actually, man, I like was fortunate enough to be in the studio with Busta Rhymes a little while ago, just like hanging out while he played me tracks that he's making, and he has some tracks with some like incredible features on them, people who I think are like the greatest sort of young rappers out, and he bodies them all. And it's like whatever you think about Busta Rhymes' relevance, like that dude is never gonna let himself get outshined on his own song because he's from that era where like rappers made rap songs, and he like and so like he's on these songs with these people who we think of as so much more relevant and so much more interesting right now, and he just like is so outstanding on these tracks. That's amazing. Like this is a dude who has worked on his craft so much that not only can he like do what the kids are doing, but he can do it better, and he can still sound like himself with like the same kind of confidence he's always had doing it.
I mean, obviously there's still a market for that kind of stuff. Some people still want to hear lyricism. People still want to hear like artists who are sort of at that kind of skill level. I don't think that's ever going to go away. Especially with fans out here like these. who watch me just talk about lyrics for hours and hours and hours. But what is your take on this kind of prevailing sentiment that, like, in order to be a rapper today, in order to have a successful record, in order to participate in hip hop, that shouldn't sort of be a barrier. You shouldn't have to, sort of like what Lil Yachty said in a recent radio interview, have to spit a hot 16 when you're sort of demanded to do it right there. Or if you wanted to come out with a song that for 3 minutes all you said was yeah, like if it was hype as shit and people liked it, then that should be the only requirement.
I totally agree.
No disagreement with that at all?
I don't know about these guys. I don't have any disagreement that like those songs shouldn't exist. Like I will still always be looking for rappers that rap, but like
Sure.
I like Yachty too. Listening to Yachty, we've talked about this, right? Is like an experience of feeling like I'm too old. Like that was like, it's like,
I think
that's not for me.
I would
Generationally.
more just content. The underlying assumption that what Yachty or Designer or Uzi Vert is doing is not lyrical is what I don't agree with that baseline premise. Right. So I don't understand the attack.
I guess the thing is, some people sort of see hip hop as like this petri dish, and sort of throwing a little Yachty in there, throwing a little Uzi Vert, throwing a Designer in there almost poisons the well. But the way that I kind of see it is, it seems like hip hop is so much larger of a network and a world for you to just kind of condense it down to a well, for you to be able to just throw one thing into it and it ruins the whole thing.
Well, and I think
I don't sort of see that comparison as accurate, and I don't think you guys do either.
And what I think is more driving the criticism is not someone sat down and carefully evaluated. His whole affectation is came to the conclusion that these are not lyrical enough. It's that his whole affectation is he does not cater to or claim to know the history the way that people think he should. And I think if he did, no one would question that. If he seemed like, if he was like, oh, I can name my favorite fucking Gangstar song and rap all the verses from it, people would be like, oh, then whatever. Because it's not like there have been not that lyrical MCs for the entire history of hip hop. I mean, there have been MCs that make party songs that don't require some really like intricate internal rhyme to be fun. So like, I think it's more like an attack on what they perceive as his disrespect and their own impending irrelevance when they see young kids coming up who don't know a Biggie verse.
Sort of that pressure to sort of know the history, know all the fucking history. I mean, do you think that's a pressure that's kind of unique to hip hop? Because I mean, there are a lot of kids who watch my show, they're huge fans of Sufjan Stevens, but they've never heard a Simon and Garfunkel record from front to back. But nobody's jumping down their fucking throat,
Well, but people are too. I mean, remember when Avril Lavigne mispronounced David Bowie, and I mean, like that happens all over the place. I don't know, like anyone, like you're like beginning in your taste and your history and your appreciation and understanding of music begins when you haven't heard anything, right? And so all of the first stuff that you hear feels like the baseline, and then as you get older, everyone else gets further and further away from that baseline, and new things develop. It feels just like as people get older, they have less of an understanding of what's happening in the world around. I don't know, it's terrifying to think the context that they've created for themselves, and I think it's really like, I don't know, it's terrifying to think that you're getting lost in that. And so I love it when something like Yachty comes out and you're like, well, I don't understand this at all. This is like, I want the way like my grandparents reacted to Elvis to happen to me. And I think that's an important thing to keep happening.
You want to feel really angry and out of touch.
It's like, what? This isn't music. This is garbage, and you're all selling your souls to the devil. And I'm not saying that Yachty is Elvis or anything, but I love having that reaction.
I think he's the closest thing we have to him right now.
But I love hearing something that like just doesn't feel like it should be possible and doesn't like conform to the rules that I've built for myself based on what I've listened to my whole life. I think it's a really exciting experience, and so it's hard for me to hate on anything that like gives me that experience.
In that respect, once you've kind of heard everything, keeping up on whatever young kids are doing to sort of break the rules is really the only kind of way to get that rush, that excitement back of like, whoa, I've never heard this before. Yeah. Because once you've kind of hit upon all of those sort of popular music landmarks of, your Velvet Undergrounds and your David Bowies and your Kraftwerks and all that shit, There's really, it's kind of hard to be surprised anymore. But then every once in a while, it's like a little Yachty comes out and it's like, I just feel like this shouldn't be popular, but it just is anyway.
Yeah.
And you have to
Yeah.
kind of you have to struggle with it, and sort of come to understand it. Maybe for us, because we're all like old as fuck.
Right, that's what I'm
Idiots.
saying. Like,
For a lot of you, you're just like, you heard Little Yachty for the first time, and you're like, this is fucking good.
This is what
me,
music
this is
sounds
my
like.
this
soul.
is actually what music sounds like always. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
that's the other thing, is that all of this is coming out of communities with 100 different artists that we haven't heard. You know what I'm saying? Like, just like we didn't come out of a vacuum, like we just toured with Youth Code, like that is part of our community,
Nirvana was not the only band that sounded like that.
Right.
I mean, they're great, but they weren't the only. Like, it's not created. Nothing's created in a vacuum.
In that respect, I mean, what's your take generally on sort of new artists who come out, and pretty much all they have to bring to the table is just nostalgia for something that had happened 20 years ago? Is it just kind of another thing that we're like, if it's popular, it's fine, or are they kind of like, I don't know, missing the bigger picture?
If it's good, I don't know. Like,
I don't know. I was gonna say I'm not offended by it. It's
No.
not. It's also not what I'm interested in listening to. So it actually, I've managed to completely stay out of that like conversation or that like sort of cultural phenomenon too, because I actually haven't heard much of it.
Because in a lot of ways, the 90s are back.
You know what? If I were like working PR for Little Yachty, I would tell him he should go around on every radio show and say his favorite '90s rapper is Malachi from Group Home, and everyone's mind would explode.
One more question or one more thing I'd like to get you guys' take on before we head out is, I can't help but ask, because I have reviewed your music on numerous occasions, and I know you've seen my reviews, and not that I'm asking you to sort of praise my reviews, but there are a lot of reviewers out there who are a lot less forgiving than me, especially when it comes to your music.
forgiving's an interesting choice of words.
I've had a personal friend of mine, and there was a particular publication, and excuse me for the very offensive joke here. I'll put it maybe a little nicer. But he had said to me, "Wow, you would think that clipping had killed the mothers of all the staff writers at this particular publication if just by looking at the scores that they get on their website." I mean, it's like in today's day and age, do you guys try to keep track of sort of public reception, reviews, or are reviews maybe not even that much of a factor in the internet age as they used to be?
We are big fans of music in general, so of course we read music criticism of other of everything, but our own records included. And one thing I will say that I've said about you for years, actually, that I'm excited about people like you who feel like the sort of future of music journalism, that feel like all of a sudden we're following individuals who have specific taste rather than organizations that have the taste of an organization. Like if you get reviewed by Rolling Stone or Stereogum or Pitchfork or any of these places, I don't feel like the readership is following like particular writers, like by and large. I mean, we do, and certainly I know people who do. But if you get a review by Anthony Fantano, we know that there's no corporate interest. There's no boss in the writer's room telling you what score to give.
Or my
things
ghostwriters.
or anything. Right.
I have ghostwriters.
Right.
Yeah.
Quentin Miller.
But you
I
tell
get the good
them
ones.
what score you want to. Your brand is yourself, is the individual, and you say, "Well, I like Fantano because I like Fantano's taste." And I think that's a really interesting and positive way for music journalism to move forward, as opposed to saying, "Well, this lifestyle brand of a website is going to define what music I like," and that it just never really
one thing
made
for me
sense to
personally
me.
is I think it creates a certain level of accountability too, because if I say something, I really have to stick by it. I can't be like, "Hey, it's actually like on this website."
It's just
Right.
one
You know?
person. It's just one writer's opinion,
Yeah.
Even though it's presented as under the heading of the one.
So I mean, all the comments I get, all the tweets I get, all the 3 a.m. phone calls I get that are like, "You gave Little Yachty a higher score than Blank Face. Fuck you." I got to deal with those. But it's like But if I didn't want to deal with that heat, I wouldn't have taken the job on. But the perk is that I get to sit down with you guys here and have a conversation about your records, and I appreciate you guys coming on and talking with me and sharing everything and just always being chill and always just being so nice. So, clipping.
Thank you.
Right back at you. Thank you.